All right, what is going on, everybody? How you doing? Welcome to another episode of Talking Buffalo, your weekday daily driver for Buffalo sports talk and more. I'm your host, Patrick Moran. Thank you, as always. Looking at you on the video side, people who are listening, like, what the hell are you laughing at already? Thank you, as always, everyone on the audio side. Appreciate you, whether you're checking us out on YouTube. Today, I'm joined for a second straight day. If you're watching these on video, we're continuing a podcast recording from Monday night because we've got the same shit on.
That's what I was laughing at. That's what I was smiling at, is you kind of haven't really, on the first episode there, on Tuesday's episode, you didn't really let on that we were just rolling back to back these, and then, the camera goes on and there we are in the same shit. But let's be honest, it's not like, well, I don't know about you, got your, you got a little midlife crisis-y thing with your gear the last couple of years. But it is not outside of the realm of possibility for me to certainly be in the exact same thing for two consecutive.
You want to hear a fun fact, a confession? I'm embarrassing myself here. I don't care. Whatever.
Yeah.
I poke fun of myself. I actually keep a spreadsheet on my computer. I'll show it to you after the show.
I don't even think I need.
What hoodie I wear, shirt I wear. I want to make sure I don't wear the same shit every week on the show. I do a daily podcast Monday through Friday every week, and I don't want to be wearing the same 2 or 3 things, man. I got a pretty decent sized closet, and I want to make sure I'm not wearing the same shit every single week. So I keep track of my gear on the show, not in life, like not talking about going out to dinner and stuff like that. But when I get, behind the camera and hit record, I kind of keep a little bit of a database, man.
I try. I guess, at times I try to mix it up a little bit.
Chautauqua hoodie. You haven't never, that's the first time you've worn that on this show.
Yeah, no.
Doing this for a while,
I thought about you when I was putting it on today, and I was making like betting odds of the likelihood that A, you've ever been to Chautauqua Institute, or B, really even kind of know what it is.
I don't.
Okay. Yeah. So I had it a very, very, very heavy favorite, like minus 1,100, that you had never been there.
Chautauqua Lake is like a pretty place where people go camping or spend like summer vacation time, correct?
It is. And I don't even know how I would describe the Chautauqua Institute, although it just came to me how I can describe it to you. Okay. It's not like exactly like this, but it's in a similar vein to remember where Baby's family went for in Dirty Dancing.
Yeah.
That is kind of Chautauqua Institute. It's a very academics are all about it. There's really very, very little modern, I mean, these are not television watchers. Okay. People don't go to the Chautauqua Institute to chill and watch TV, man. Right. They sit on their porch, in very old, nostalgic looking, homes and
they're not on Twitter the whole time.
No, they are not on Twitter the whole time. I don't really have a whole lot of, cause to be there. I'm certainly not an academic, and I don't read a lot, and even though it's kind of my type of people, it's a very snowflakey type of place. Not gonna see a lot of Confederate flags and fucking and MAGA folks at the Institute. But what draws me there is like, and what you wouldn't like have some interest in, probably if you looked at their schedule, is they bring some real old school acts. Like, remember when I went to see Smokey? Mm-hmm. Remember when I seen Smokey a couple years ago? I mean, like, that was the Institute.
Oh,
you know
wow.
what I mean? So they closed the season out, and during the course of the season, they have acts as well. But yeah, like I think the Beach Boys, they can no longer fill out the minor league baseball stadium, but
sure,
the Institute will bring them. So. That's how I've ended up there a couple times, and it is right up my girl's alley. My girl is definitely an academic.
How far is that?
School teacher.
How far is it from here in Buffalo?
50 minutes. But just under an hour. You get there, depending upon what suburb from the area you're heading out there towards. But it's Jamestowny. You know what I mean? That like that. That direction, I guess, for someone who probably doesn't travel out there much.
We're going to talk. Well, we're getting into some Von Miller stuff today. I wanted to save that for today because I felt like we were running a little bit late and I didn't just want to force it. I wanted to be able to spend a solid handful of minutes discussing that. We'll talk a little bit of Sabres today, much to your dismay. I got a couple questions about the coaches too. I will say though, so on yesterday's show, I predicted for the first time all season, I felt confident enough to make a Super Bowl prediction. I said it was going to be Miami and San Francisco, and that's my Super Bowl pick right now. Got me thinking because, again, that was like in the mid-'80s, 84, 85, when that Super Bowl happened. We're both old enough to not just have been alive, and I know some people were watching or some people are listening, were literally not even born when the Bills went to 4 straight Super Bowls. We were not just born, we were pretty much through our teenage years going into our early 20s by the time.
84, you're talking those 84, 85.
I'm talking about the Bills. When the Bills would, so the Bills went to 4 straight Super Bowls, and yeah, we were just, we were little teenagers when Marino went.
I was dialed in, like I did. That was the start of my fandom. That like 83 is when I really started to, even a little bit before that. I remember the Fergie Bills, but as far as knowledge outside of the Bills, and I'll tell you a story. I'm going to tell you a quick story on how it came to be. So I'm like, it's 1984, which would make me 11 or 12 at the time of the draft. I have an uncle, all right, who has actually been contacted by fantasy, people and stuff like that, in the belief that he has like one of the longest standing fantasy leagues in the country. Like my man started fantasy in like 79, bro. Jesus. Just writing down sixes in a notebook. Yeah. You were in that. You came in that league for a little bit. Anyways, though, so in 83, so my stepfather would never let me pay. It was gambling. All right. I wasn't allowed at the table. First year I was kind of allowed at the table as an advisor. All right. Was 84. And Marino had just come off the half season in 83. People weren't all in on him quite yet.
Right.
You know what I mean? Those drafts were still going. I wonder if you could predict who would go one and two in the early 80s. I don't think you could. I don't want to waste your time. I don't think you could.
What? You talk about the order of the quarterbacks?
Who were your 1 and 2s in a fantasy football pool that was touchdowns only? So it was always quarterbacks first because it was touchdowns.
Are you talking about just the rookies from that class?
No, I'm talking about a fantasy draft in 84. Let's yes. Faust was your number 1. Number 2 is going to be a little bit harder, but he threw the hell out of the ball. And I'll give you a hint. I believe both of Faust's receivers would later go on to catch balls from this quarterback. No, I don't think Wes Chandler did, but JJ Jefferson definitely went to this team, and a very popular Bills Hall of Famer also caught balls from this quarterback. Number 2. It's tough, bro.
I'm stumped.
It's tough. Lynn Dickey.
Oh, wow. You know what? I had the right team, but I had the wrong quarterback.
No. Lynn Dickey. So Fouts and Dickey were going 1-2 for years, right? Anyway, so I get a seat at the table in 84, and it comes to my stepdad at 5, right? And he's ready to go. Like he's still hanging on to like Vince Ferragamo type shit, right? And I'm like, listen, Dan Marino is about to do what he did for 9 games. For 16, he's gonna go off the hook. And at the time, it was a 1 year. I don't know if it was 1 year. It might have been multiple years. At the time, though, it was a keeper league. I fucking won that dude so much money from giving him he went with Marino.
Yeah,
he went with Marino. So, anyways, though, being dialed, I was locked in, and because of that, with Marino especially, until the Bills got good and started, taking him on, Marino was always of interest to me because I had that pick as a young type. So 84, I was shocked, man. I was like this Miami team is finishing this season, with they're the Super Bowl champ. I just wasn't that engaged in with the Niners as I was with the Dolphins, but they boat rolled them, man.
They did. And then they never went back.
Yeah,
Miami never went back.
They whipped their ass.
No, I was pretty dialed in too. I'm 1 year older than you. I was dialed in too, not just football, but also baseball at that time. I think I can remember shit from the 80s sometimes more than I can remember stuff from like the mid 2000s. I swear to God, it's just how my brain works. But
I remember the Yankees playoff hopes ending on a Butch Weiniger fly ball to Jesse Barfield.
I don't remember all that.
It was the last series of the year. The Yanks went into Toronto needing to sweep them. They may have gotten game one, but in game two. And I remember Weiniger flew out to Barfield. I'm like you. I could be much better with the 80s, mainly because of how much I drank in the 90s.
Before we get cooking with today's episode, what I wanted to ask you was, I'm pretty sure, considering the stuff you're just railing off to me, which, by the way, this isn't a question, but you really brought me back to memory lane right now. Being in some fantasy football leagues when we were younger, that no computers, or literally it was notebooks with paper, and no stats mattered except touchdowns. That's it. Just touchdowns. Like if you do for 400 yards and one touchdown, that's 6 points. You didn't do shit. It's crazy, man, back in those days.
Who will ever forget the most notorious first overall pick of a fantasy football draft after what I believe was 3 or 4 40 ounces of Old English, an old buddy of ours took to the podium to draft Wendell Cunningham. Boom, right out of the fucking chair. Like,
Marty, right?
Yeah, Marty, man. Marty wanted to draft.
Shout out Marty Niscoda, man.
Called him Wendell Cunningham and just like fell out of his chair after like 3 or 4 bottles of Old English.
That is hilarious.
That's a draft right there, boys.
That is hilarious. So what I wanted to ask you, and again, depending on how old some people are, who knows if they were even around for this, but the Bills going to 4 straight Super Bowls. To this day, can you still remember, without getting into too much detail for each, but can you remember like where you watched the game, all 4 of them?
Yeah.
Where?
Super Bowls, sure. Okay, the Giants game I was on, Bird and Barry. There was a group of us on at the apartment on Bird and Barry. I remember the only time this ever happened, but the people in the front house had to come back because we were just blasting, music and pregame, just going nuts. And I remember like just taking like a Seagram's 7 or whatever that booze is. There was a bottle of that going around when Norwood missed the kick. And I just, I just started to chug it.
You're talking about Bird and Barry, by the way, West Side reference.
West Side, Bird and Barry, the right by the post office there on Bird. All right, so Giants game, Bird and Barry. Fucking the Redskins game. Worked the first half actually at Zips Pizza. Got stuck working the first half at Zips Pizza, and me and Danny Fogues just went home for the second half, but it was kind of over by that point, so we didn't bother trying to find where anybody was. First Dallas one was Scully's with parents and the whole nine, a more wholesome viewing, and the last the second Dallas game was the Commonwealth apartment. Yeah. So yes, I still remember the 4 bowls.
Yeah, the first one and the last one we watched, Bird and Barry and Commonwealth. Yeah. The first one was I thought the Bills were destined to win that game. My dad had just passed away like maybe 5-6 weeks before that game. Second one, I wasn't with you. There was a Billy Clark, like a Clark family party or something. Just got shit faced. I remember not knowing anybody pretty much, and the Bills got blown the hell out. Dallas game, you said you worked the first half of the second game or the second Super Bowl.
No, first half of the
Washington game.
The Redskins one.
The first Dallas Super Bowl, I worked at Quickfill on Grant Street
across
near Auburn.
right across the street from the place that I was working the year before.
Zips,
That's how attached at the hip we were in our
I worked.
Not just us though. We were a bunch of us.
Right. I worked at Quick Fill, which I also was working at Quick Fill. That was the year where the Bills, the miracle comeback against the Houston Oilers. I was at Quick Fill for that one too. And yeah, then Commonwealth, which I thought at halftime, I really thought the Bills were that fucking game. One fumble later, first play of the half, I'm like, yep, they're gonna lose again. But anyway, yeah, it's funny how we can remember shit from 30 years ago, and I honestly can't remember.
Those are Super Bowls, though, man. I mean, I can't remember
stats. I've forgotten about Super Bowl, not Bills Super Bowls, obviously since then, but I can't remember a lot of Super Bowls, even over the last 10 years or so. Anyway, all right, let's dive in here on a serious note, and I want to put this out there too, a disclaimer that we are taping this late at night on Monday for a Tuesday night video release, a Wednesday morning podcast, audio podcast drop. As we're recording this, nothing has happened in terms of Von Miller and with the Bills announcing anything that might happen if he's going to be with the team, away from the team. So we have no idea as we're recording this. Let's go back to a week ago. So it was on a Thursday. I know that because I met up with you at McDonald's on a Thursday. I went to Pep Boys. I went to Pep Boys. Well, there's a reason why I'm bringing this up. So I went to
McDonald's. I'm sorry. I was telling old Sherry how I met you here, and as we were literally in that line for a half hour tonight. That is the worst it's McDonald's I've ever seen.
They had no interest in, I literally stayed there for 10 minutes.
Unbelievable.
Nobody's even in front of me.
They just line at that McDonald's.
Anyway, so I was going to Pep Boys because I had and I got a lot of ridicule, by the way. Apparently, I guess Pep Boys is a terrible fucking place to buy tires, unbeknownst to me. But anyway, I had an appointment scheduled, so I'm going there. I left the house. The Von Miller stuff hadn't broke yet. And then on the thruway, it's about a 25-minute ride from my house here in West Seneca to North Buffalo. And the phone just blew the hell up with all the stuff coming out about Von Miller. Like I said, I met you briefly at McDonald's and we talked for a few minutes. Obviously,
only because I left my weed here the week before. I wouldn't have just met up with you at McDonald's to hang out or whatever. It was very close to my house.
It's funny because it was a Monday. You left your weed pen here
I left my
Sunday,
weed
and then by Thursday you were like, "Yo, man, I need my weed."
I need that.
Anyway, on a serious note, of course, I mean, we already know what happened. Von Miller got arrested, charges assault. We've seen the reports. We know about the reports. Later in that, was it the next day or that night? I don't remember. But the woman recanted and said that it didn't happen. And we sit here now on Monday, unsure of how things are going to play out. I made it a point to say at the time, I'm not completely walking this back, maybe a little bit, that I didn't want to react too much until more facts came out. I don't want to knee-jerk react to something so serious. And I told you, not as big of a story, not as, didn't have to do with domestic violence, but I told you about the Ed Oliver story a couple years ago, where I prematurely bashed the guy for, when he got accused of a DWI and having a firearm in his car as well. Anyway, turns out that no charges were pressed and so on and so forth. I don't really want to get into that. But my point was, I didn't want to quickly overreact to something with some, really strong take or something. But what I didn't realize at the time, I didn't know. I'm going to be honest with you. I knew about the prior domestic violence charge he had. I forgot about the revenge porn shit. And I started thinking,
I was the other way. I remember the revenge porn part. But I was
the opposite. And I did remember that. I don't know. Let's start here. I don't want to have a podcast where we're, not going to tackle things that are this important, whether it pertains to the football side and the human element side as well. I'm not going to convict somebody at this point, but it looks pretty obvious that, I don't know how to say it the right way. And I don't want to victim bash either. I mean, the women recanted.
Go ahead.
No, I was gonna say the woman's recanted, but I don't think anybody who believes that. I don't believe that. I believe maybe she's trying to save his ass. Maybe I don't want to. I'm not inside those four walls. I don't know what he offered or what was said, to have her come to completely changing the story around. But there's a police phone call. There's marks. There's physical evidence that shit happened.
According to one report, sure.
Sure. I mean, yes.
According to one report, I believe that it did. I believe
that's what I'm kind of arriving to.
I'm not. But hey, I want to say this though. I want to. So people will be hearing this
Wednesday morning.
On Wednesday, or seeing the video side on Tuesday. I thought going into it when we said we're going to talk about this, on our second taping of the evening, that we would be home free with news on Tuesday. I'm going to walk that back. I don't even know if I said it to you, but just in my own mind, I'm going to walk that back. I think the Bills are going to slip something out there tomorrow when no one's available. You know what
tomorrow
I mean?
Tomorrow
meaning Tuesday. Sorry, we're taping this on Monday. I think the Bills will slip something out tomorrow, get a chance to give themselves a little bit of a feel for what the reaction is to whatever statement it is they make, or if they decide to make a roster move. You know what I mean? Like, does he even show up on Wednesday? You know what I mean? So I something tells me when you're seeing this or hearing this, the Bills, the first domino will have fallen as it relates to how the Bills are going to handle this and what it might look like roster wise. I do think there'll be a little bit of movement before this gets to people's ears.
I hate to predict something, because by the time people listen to this, if you're right, and you very well could be right, but when people hear this on Wednesday morning, something already went down on Tuesday. This might have already happened, but I would be stunned, and I mean stunned, if Von Miller's practicing with the Buffalo Bills on Wednesday.
I agree.
I think maybe some way, shape, or form. I don't know how it'll be written or presented, but he's away from the team while we continue to investigate the details. Can you see something like that happening?
Yeah, I think that comes tomorrow. I do. Part of me thinks that comes tomorrow so that McDermott has a fallback statement that he can turn to when he's and the team has a fallback statement that they can turn to when they get in front of the mics on Wednesday. As a matter of fact, I'm going to go as far as to say
Wednesday afternoon he will speak to the media. That's scheduled. That's got nothing to do with Vaughn. Just all right.
I just think I think something will be out on Tuesday. I think the Bills will slip something out there on Tuesday, whether it's a paper type of transaction that puts them on some sort of list, not the commissioner's list. You know what I mean? Because I think it has to be a suspension for him to go on the commissioner's exempt list. But I think there'll be, some sort of option available to the Bills to just get them out of their fucking hair. And I think they'll do that before they get in front of mics on Wednesday. It'll be out there.
I want to get to in a minute. I want to get to a portion of a Von Miller discussion you tweeted about, because I think you're pretty much right. And we'll get to that in a minute. I think there's a great chance that Von Miller will never play another down for the Buffalo Bills. Look, it goes without saying, if he's found guilty, of course, we hope the full extent of the law comes down on him. He obviously never plays football again. But I'm at a point now where if there's, and this is what's stopping me from going all in right now, because I don't know for sure, other than one report about any physical things that happened to her in terms of like she got her hair pulled out. I think I heard about marks on her neck. He stomped on her foot, allegedly smashed her laptop. Like, if there's physical evidence, first of all, from what I understand, if there's physical evidence, it doesn't, whether she recants her statement or not, they still can go after him. And I think they will. If that stuff's true, I just I don't know, man.
He's not, look, I'm with you. He's not, I think his career as a Buffalo Bill is done. I think,
which again, we're putting this out there. I got to keep saying it Monday, because he might be a fucking practice for all we know as we tape this on Wednesday. I don't think there's any realistic way.
I don't think there's a chance.
I agree.
I don't think it'll happen until the off season. I don't think his career as a Bill will end until the offseason. Fuck, man, they might put him on IR for all we know and be like, well, he just isn't the same.
Go back and watch the film. You can make a good case for that shit from a football standpoint.
I agree that he's done. I don't think it will play out in season though. I think it will play out in the off season, more than likely. But as far as this part of it is just not super important to me because it's just one case in many that is a far greater problem than just this Von Miller case. But there's no prosecutor out there that's going to take a case where the victim recants their story. These prosecutors, their job is to,
even if he's got a history,
is to win, and they don't like taking losers. And I just think that the likelihood of a heavy legal recourse outside of football probably is hindered a great deal by the victim's retraction or recanting. Those mean two different things, retraction and recanting. Maybe they don't, but I don't like to use I don't want to be ambiguous in one breath, but I also don't want to say things that I like. What did she really say and then not say? Right. I can't do any of that. Yeah. To me, the only thing in this story that I am comfortable talking about is the football piece. And it's not because, the human element is something that I'm blind to. It's because what is really driving the story here in our neck of the woods is the football piece. And to ignore that or to say that it's secondary to everything else. My opinion is that it lacks self-awareness. All right. If you're out there saying it because you think it's the right thing to say, to put the spotlight or the lens of domestic violence first and foremost, I'm not here to assassinate your character for doing that. Not you, but just speaking in general terms.
I know what you mean.
I'm not here to assassinate anyone's character for doing that. I'm just here to say that I think your self-awareness is lacking, because I think the reason that there has been continued support for the victim following a retraction. Now, I'm not saying that people would have bailed on her had she held to it.
Right.
All right. I'm saying that in two scenarios, all right, if Von Miller's playing lights out football and she retracts her initial statements as she appears to have, people would be singing a different tune, or they more likely not singing a different tune.
A fair percentage, a strong
quiet,
percentage.
All right. They would be quiet.
A strong percentage, not everybody.
Yeah. Well, first, let's first point out, okay, that we are not speaking, at least I'm not, I think I can speak for you too. There's that bucket of people that say, well, look at the Trevor Ariza thing or whatever. He's not guilty. Okay. Those people don't even belong in the discussion. Okay. Those are fucking jerk offs and women haters. Okay. I don't want them lumped into this conversation. This conversation is for people with rational, empathetic fucking thought and minds.
Yeah.
But we're driven by the football part. All right. And we're driven by the football part because he sucks and we'd love to get out from underneath that contract.
It matters. I think it does but a lot of people feel that way, but it's not a consensus. There's some people.
Of course it's not a consensus,
some people, but you're not wrong. If this was, let's just say it, if this was Stephon Diggs or this was Josh Allen and this happened during their bye week and the woman recanted, 10% maybe, 10 to 15% might say, fuck that, I don't want him on my team. Whereas Vaughn is probably 80%.
Yes.
Because you're right. From a football standpoint only, he sucks. He's not
sucks
good.
And he's fucking taking up like 10% of your cap next year.
I literally have been going on rants weekly about.
The Bills may have gotten an absolute gift No one would. Now, see, that's where you got to kind of step back and be like, hey, I don't want to call domestic violence a gift. All right.
Right. Yeah,
Which
sure.
I don't. Okay. But I mean,
no, we're keeping this football right now. This portion of what we're talking about, I've been going on for weeks that I don't even think he should be playing above Kingsley Jonathan right now. And I don't think he's one of the 4 or 5 best defensive ends on this team. From a football standpoint and football only, this is where I agree with you. He's done nothing. He's done nothing. And if he was a star player who was playing great, I do think, following a recanting, that a much larger percentage of people, 100%, would be like, you got to let the process play out. You got to let the process pay out. But because of the fact that A, he sucks. B, hold on, he doesn't suck. He's a
no, he sucks. No, he sucks. He's fucking
sucks right now.
He's done.
Sucks right now. He sucks right now. We don't know that physically. Well, he might not find out now going forward, but he could have gotten back if not the end of this year, certainly going in the next season. He's washed right now. That's for sure. He's washed right now. He's 35 years old, and he's got a horrible fucking contract that the Bills are pretty much on the hook for next season. If they get rid of him, they would lose $8 million in cap space, not gain. They would have to pay all that dead cap money, and then they would lose.
There's a great spot track breakdown today.
There was.
I don't know if you saw it. I couldn't follow it. I'm not going to lie. I'm not gonna lie. It was a little tough.
It's just how you want to allocate the dead.
But there was a great spot track breakdown of it today.
It was great. And from a football standpoint, if he were to get suspended, then the Bills could void his guarantee money. That's kind of the gist of it. I do agree, though, and I hate to say this, and I don't want to think this way, but people will, because for a lot of people, this is about football. You follow your football team. And I don't even think that necessarily makes you a terrible person.
No.
You don't want to get involved in this shit. Well, if he's innocent, I hope he rots in jail. If he's not, I care about my football team. But it is a fair point, and I think an accurate one, to say if this were Josh Allen, you like to think it never would be, or Stephon. But if it were to be one of those two guys, I do feel like attitudes would be different on this football team. But instead, you got an aging, washed up at the time guy coming off a significant knee injury that has not looked 1 ounce better in his 5th or 6th game back than he did the first game back. So I do think that kind of forms opinions.
Yeah, and that's what I tweeted. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And thankfully, I have 4 non-bot followers, so it doesn't really get a lot of traction. But I was kind of hung up on it a little bit. I'm someone,
But this is why podcasting and talking is important as opposed to a tweet.
Yeah.
Sometimes a tweet, the tone of a tweet, you know what I mean? The intent of a tweet could be taken out of context or not have context to it, not be layered at all. And then you're thinking, well, what the fuck? You know what I mean?
I was pretty comfortable. I was pretty comfortable that, I covered myself on all ends, and I know who I am as a human being. So I was pretty comfortable, tweeting it then and saying it now. But for some reason, in the aftermath of the news and like maybe the 24 or 48 hours that followed it, that's kind of what I gravitated to. But I'm not really on that anymore. Like, I'm not, I believe I like to think of myself as a self-aware guy. All right. And I like to, sometimes I can't keep my mouth shut, pointing out when I think that others aren't really being self-aware. You know what I mean? Like it's hard to take certain things seriously when, every single tweet you have is, you and Bill's gear and Josh Allen stats and whatever. It's like, how do I know your fandom isn't really kind of driving this? But who the fuck cares? I mean, like, who might, I don't know, maybe people's fandom is driving it, or maybe as victims of DB at some point in their life, they're able to separate it. It's actually really not as big of a hang up for me as when it first launched, because I just think, everybody, when there's big news, everybody kind of grabs onto something that's interesting to them, that's noteworthy to them. And for me, it was the reaction of some of the fans. But with several more days to kind of put that in the rear view, I'm just, I'm on to Kansas City, man. I'm on to Kansas City, and I figure that it's, and I'm fine. I
just didn't want to ignore
that it's probably not going to be with Von Miller.
I haven't done a podcast since the arrest on Thursday.
No, I'm glad. I'd like talking.
I didn't want to have it not addressed. I wanted to make sure we talked about it, and I want to make crystal clear too that even when we say a lot of football fans would feel differently if it were Josh or Stefan, if the victim recanted, that's not everybody. And neither of us are saying that there's nobody out there who would say, well, he's a great quarterback. No, there are a lot of people who would say, fuck him. He's a piece of shit human being. He beat a woman, and I want him off my football team. I'm just saying there's some people out there who would still have that attitude. I do think a majority of people, though, or not a majority, but a good percentage of people for sure, because it's Von Miller and not a star player or somebody who's playing like a star anyway. It kind of tends to form your opinion. One last thing, and I want to get to this before I take a break because when we come back, I don't want to talk about this anymore. Brandon Beane, I've seen some criticism of him on Twitter this week. I feel like he deserves some. I mean, this is a guy now who had two cases. Or they had one case and then he had another one after he signed. The revenge porn thing.
It was right as he was signing.
Right as he was signing, but
or at least it came public. Just as he was signing.
I will say, and I agree with you 100% about the punter and not lumping them into the same conversation. But you could say that it was a lack of the Bills doing due diligence and not even looking into the matter. What happened with the punter a couple years ago? Kind of the same deal with Vaughn. It's like, do you think Brandon Beane deserves some criticism right now, or not just him, whoever, in the front office, courts or vets, free agents, potential guys like this, man?
Yeah, I think for me, it's not like a deal breaker or, a status changer as far as his job is concerned. But I do think it matters. I do think it's a mark against Beane. And yeah, man, maybe I should hold off on saying that it might not be change his job status. If you believe that Terry Pegula is all in on Sean McDermott, and I think McDermott is the one that he backs the most. It just seems like he's more McDermott-y than Beane type, like Beane does, hey, Clark, the shitter's full, he's got personality, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Terry doesn't, Terry's more of, it just seems like he'd get along better with McDermott. I think he backs McDermott more than Beane. And if, like we talked about yesterday, if there are relationship issues in the building, and one of them happens to be Beane and McDermott for whatever reason, even if it's not full blown, I could easily see with a female part owner. All right. I could easily see Pegula looking at this and using it as one of the pros to firing Brandon Beane.
No, for sure. Be right back. All right, I'm back here with Tone Bucks. Just got done talking about Von Miller. I think the consensus is, I think we both think that he's probably played his last game as a Buffalo Bill. We'll see. I don't know. Maybe by the time people are listening to this, they'll already know more information. Or later on Wednesday, when Sean McDermott speaks, maybe we might get some more information on how the Bills are going to proceed and handle Vaughn going forward. Let's go to the hockey side for a few here before we get out.
Can I just tell you something? All right. And actually, this isn't me hijacking hockey. This is like, I honestly want to say this. If this, remember, we're taping this on a Monday night. Mm-hmm. If this Celtics Pacers game goes to overtime and that costs me the over, I'm dumping this whole fucking set. All right. I'm talking Drexel and True Romance. This whole thing is just flipping. If I lose this play because that game goes to overtime. Anyways, though, you wanted to what was it you want to talk about?
I want to get to hockey for a few minutes in kind of like Well, I guess maybe it's a Bills thing too. We talked about this a few minutes anyway before we started taping. And the Bills and the Sabres coaches right now, Terry Pegula gave an extension to Sean McDermott that runs through 2027. Now, mind you, he could fire Sean tomorrow and still have to pay him, but that doesn't mean he can't fire him. And then on the hockey side, which I'm going to be honest, until I saw a tweet from Mike Harrington on Monday afternoon, I didn't know Don Granato had an extension through 2026, but that's the case with him. And I'm thinking to myself, Sean, I can understand maybe a little bit. Maybe. I mean, he got you to a conference championship game. He's gotten you to playoffs 4 straight years coming into the season. You can feel secure about him. You know, he might be a coveted coach as much as a lot of Bills fans hate him right now. Were he a free agent, there might be some teams lining up to get somebody like him. So I kind of could get the McDermott extension. But why did Don Granato got an extension through 2026? And I'm not even just talking about because they're struggling this year. Dude's never even made the playoffs. Came closer to making the playoffs last year. Why would you have to go locking this guy up for 3 years, 3 more years? Did you know that?
No, but I mean, there's no surprise. And when you told me that you wanted to, broach this topic today, I was thrilled actually, because I had some thoughts on it on the player side as well. There aren't a whole lot of things with regards to the way Pegula does business that we can look at the two models, Bills and Sabres, and say that he's fairly consistent with. All right. One is the fact that he doesn't really use the presidency, you know what I mean? Which I think is an issue, especially when things start to go south a little bit. But the other is he doesn't like guys to get into that last year of their contract. All right. He just, he doesn't want McDermott going into that final year. He didn't want Bean going into that final year. I think Granato might have gone into that final year. So, the timing of the extensions, I think, are important. And I think they speak to a business practice that is, and maybe part of it is still that fear that, that Buffalo is the, is kind of the little guy. And if we've got someone that we really are invested in and believe in, we don't want that person to even sniff the end of their contract and what else might be out there for them. So I think that might be in play as far as, the business model is concerned. But you have seen it. I didn't give a lot of thought to it as it relates to the Bills. Maybe a couple of names can come to mind pretty easy. But on the Sabres side, I'm not going to go as far as to say that the type of things that I think maybe the instigators, might say, whether it be, riding the bus or earning the, just not being handed the wheelbarrows full of money. And certainly, they saved a lot on what would have been a Tage Thompson extension, getting them, in the 7s there when he probably would have gone to 10. But can we say the same thing that you're saying about the awarding of extensions, to coaches, about guys like Dylan Cousins and Owen Power? Yeah. All right. I mean, look, I don't think they necessarily got complacent, or they got their money and now they don't work as hard. I'm not about that. But, Darlene had a bridge, man. Darlene went through some real troubles there in year 2 and part of 3.
Sure.
And only got himself a bridge. And it wasn't until the bridge that he went out there and earned it. We may have been premature with Cousins and Power. I just, and not because I think they're not going to be who we envision when we gave them the money, but man, why do we have to rush those? What if it did matter? What if it did matter? So that's just who we are right now. We're trying to lock up. We're trying to lock up guys that we think are long-termers. We're trying to lock them up. well in advance of any sort of end of contract.
The mindset that it could be a bargain down the road. That's the mindset.
And that too. All right. I think those two things intertwined, that A, it can be a bargain, and B, all right, it keeps them here and we never have to worry about it. And oh man, I mean, look at Casey Middlestat, man. Casey's playing for a contract this year. Now he'll still be I believe even if he gets to the end of this year without one, he's still restricted. So good job by, in whoever, got us, out of that one and kept him in our, kept him in house with that. But why couldn't we have just waited it out with the kids that we put so much responsibility on?
Smart hockey people that were very surprised that Power got a long-term extension. The mindset that if you sign them now, lock them up, that might seem like a bargain in a couple of years as the cap keeps going up. But there were a lot of people surprised.
Full year, not even right. Yeah. Right. It was last year that he joined us. Am I wrong?
First full season, right?
Like last year he joined us late. Did he have the full year last year?
He had a full year last year.
Did he have a full year?
Yeah, he had a full year last year.
All right. Yeah, bad job.
Look,
but still, you know what I mean? Year three of the entry. And you feel the need to make him a multimillionaire. I don't know. I don't know.
So yesterday's show, kind of my premise was it's do or die time for the Bills. And it is absolutely do or die for the Bills. I kind of feel like that's not quite the case with the Sabres yet. And I got an argument with my cousin about this because I said it's only December. They're only 4. All right. So we're taping this again on Monday. Now unlike the Bills who don't play till Sunday, by the time you're watching this or listening to this, the Sabres will have played Detroit Tuesday. So maybe things change a little bit. As we record this, the Sabres are 4 points out of a playoff spot. So to say it's do or die in February can be considered ridiculous. Conversely, though, they're also 4 points away from being quite literally the worst team in the Eastern Conference right now. So that's how close they are to the bottom as well. They're 10-13-2 as we tape this. They're only 20th in goals scored. That's terrible. 24th in goals against. They got the tie for the 5th worst goal differential in the league at -14. Here's what I'm going to do. Instead of spending time going through all these, I got a little bit of a checklist here of issues with the Sabres right now. And maybe one or two of these, maybe you can elaborate on a little bit or think that these are the most important ones. But this is like my checklist of a bunch of shit that's just going wrong with this hockey team right now. Okposo, Gergensen, Olofsson, Jost, Krebs. Sometimes they bring 0 to the team, like completely inconsistent. You go games, not even just periods, you go games where you get nothing from any of those guys. Krebs, 1 goal, 4 points in 23 games. I know what his role on this team is supposed to be right now, but still, you've only found the net once in 23 games. Owen Power, you talked about him earlier.
Hold on.
I'm going to run him off. And then I want you to
give me one at a kind of. Let me go one at a time with you.
Well, we might be you down.
I don't have long. It's not long. It's not long.
All right. Well, let's start.
Just bullets. The guys that you mentioned, I can't. Yeah, I hear them, and it triggers an immediate thought that I was getting to anyways. 3 of those dudes were re-signed in the offseason.
Yeah.
Okay, that's an Adams thing.
2 leaders.
Okay,
and a captain.
Yeah, that's an Adams thing. 3 of those guys were re-signed in the offseason. So, Krebs.
And one of them was a central piece in a Jack Eichel trade, too.
Well, I mean, I still think with other defensive minded guys with some sort of finishing ability that Krebs could fill that that 4th line role. But and Olofsson, we knew we were on the hook for, coming into this year. But 3 of the 5 that you mentioned that do a whole lot of nothing were re-signed, and that is starting to look like a big problem.
Sure. You talked about him a little bit already. Owen Power, I got in my notes. He hasn't taken that next step yet. He's been at times a liability on the team this year. And I don't think he's played very well. And I've talked to hockey guys a lot and then kind of come to the same conclusion. Like, I don't even want to say regression, so to speak, but he definitely hasn't improved on his play from last year. So, I mean, again, it's a guy you just gave a big fat contract to.
Analytics guys love him. They will go after you pretty good for pointing to him as part of the problem. But as someone who just enjoys my hockey by way of the eye test a lot, even though, I'll certainly peek in on a fair amount of analytic interaction, I'm with you on that point. But you would be taken to task, all right, by guys who live and die by, expected goals for, expected, shots.
And some of these points I'm making are current now problems, not necessarily, I remember having Joe Yurt on the show for the last couple of years, and we went through the same shit with Darlene, especially at the beginning of the year. I remember one time Joe told me that he thinks maybe he needs to see a psychiatrist because a lot of his game issues were mental, stuff like that. But my point is, I'm talking about stuff going on right now with Krebs and Power. And then another one, Zach Benson, man. Kid's got a great future. You see some signs, but he's got a pretty big role on this team right now as an 18-year-old rookie. Bottom line, 15 games, just 2 goals. You got to give goal. He's got to score.
Only because we've put him in that
sure.
spot. All right.
Unfair to him, but
in reality,
is that another Kevyn Adams strike?
No, he should have stayed up. He was just too good, and we were just too thin. You know what I mean? There appears to be no faith right now in the two-way, the two-way abilities of the kids in Rochester, right? So, but I'm still fine with the Benson decision. I'm fine with you pointing out that he only has 2 goals in 15 games, but to me, that's because he's, he needs to be on the third line. I mean, we talk about the guys that, I guess here is one that's going to trigger a little something long-winded. We talk about the guys that they brought back on that fourth line. And I know that they serve some roles, be it in the locker room, PK, whatever it may be, but they don't score for shit. All right. They don't score at all.
Right.
And the problem is you can get away with that if you're balanced 1 through 3. Okay. We have no third line scoring. Okay. None at all.
Right.
And
now.
all that does, all right, is magnify the fact that your fourth line doesn't score either. It's all or nothing in the top 6, whether it's the Quinn injury, there is some bad luck involved here as to why they don't have the depth in the top 3. Quinn screwed, man, you take one.
And then you put Middlestat down to a third line if Tage is there.
You take one piece out of that top 9, and it could go south pretty quick, especially with the youth. So the Quinn injury was big. Thompson injury, big. Maybe some good news has come out by the time this podcast goes up, but probably some bad news has come out on Alex Tuck. So, the thing with Benson is that that's just a lot of weight for an 18-year-old in the top 6, man.
Sure.
All right. Get him in because of his two-way skills, get him on that third line, just get to a place where you can roll a competent 3, and then I can deal with the lackluster 4th. But we just haven't been able to get that third, and it's put more pressure on the top 2 lines, and they haven't responded. They've clearly been clutching the sticks, clearly been feeling the pressure. And a lot of people are pointing to guys in that top 6 as part of the problem. And I don't disagree, but man, if they had some support from the bottom 6, all right, or even the middle, most notably a non-existent third line, I think take a little of that pressure off those top 6 to perform. And Benson's a great example of that. He's probably better suited, to be on your third line right now than your second.
I got Jordan Greenway too. He started real nice early on in the season with 2 goals and 7 points in 21 games. He's a guy who should be playing on the fourth line. He's a good, legitimate fourth line player. Maybe a third. But again, just like with Benson, and I get it, Benson's a rookie. Jordan Greenway's not, man. And 2 goals, 7 points, 21 games. That means you're getting a point every third game.
All right. I think Greenway, I hear you on Greenway. I think his penalty killing has been huge. There might be bad news that comes out about Greenway by the time this one goes out too. Seriously, he's hurt.
No, I know.
But I am someone who thinks that Greenway could ride shotgun on a third line with a competent other two.
Say a middle.
You know what I mean? Give me like shit. I mean, give me Cousins, Greenway, and Benson. You know what I mean? Or Middlestat, Greenway, and Benson. I mean, are we going to be how you were pretty quick to take Middlestat to that third line?
Middlestat,
are we not sure that it's Cousins who doesn't? Kind of if we're numbering our lines or we're numbering our centers, are we not sure that it shouldn't be Tage?
Cousins played really well with Paterka and Quinn last year, and you get Quinn back, and I'm like, I like that line.
Just go right back
and
to it.
Middlestat, Greenway, and Benson.
Middlestat, Greenway, Benson, sure.
Yeah. But here's the point when I'm talking about almost do or die territory. They can't be going another month where they go 3-6-2. Over or 3-6-1 in a 10-game span, man. You fall 10 points back in this conference. It's not the points, it's how many teams you got to leap to get up there. Another problem with this team, and I think maybe it was Andrew Peters, which not surprisingly it would be him, or maybe it was even Reve, but they're small and they're getting bullied and they don't have toughness and grit on this team. Greenway is one of the few that gives you that toughness and grit. Okposo ain't doing shit. Gergeson ain't doing shit on your check-in line. Guys like Tuck and Cousins literally are getting hurt having to fight because you don't have those guys other than Greenway. Just, there's a lack of toughness on this team.
Well, that would be your second strike against the analytics, your second strike against you from the analytics community because they don't buy it at all. But they don't buy that the Sabres aren't tough. They don't buy that it matters. They don't, come on, man. You follow these guys.
I do.
And you follow these guys. You've had a couple of them on the show. They do not buy the toughness.
Respect to Chad.
They do not buy the toughness piece.
Hockey
sandpaper,
players,
all that shit. All they do is
word.
Joke about how it's somebody from Tonawanda or whatever.
That's saying go sign Rob Ray or Ty Doman.
Internal jokes that
they need some toughness. And I'm not
all the time.
You don't got to go get goons, but somebody who is going to make you pay a price if you go fucking Zach Benson from behind into the boards.
I agree.
And not fucking Alex Tucker, Dylan Cousins getting hurt in fights. Those are your star players, for Christ's sake. Couple more, too, that I got. The signings, 2 defensive signings. Connor Clifton, Eric Johnson, borderline disasters.
When you take those two, all right, along with the re-signings, God, and the goalie carousel. This is the first time we've probably looked at Adams and said, dude, you might have fucked a couple things up.
Yeah, no question about it. And then the last thing, staying with the goalie, I'm not mad that Devin Levi's not ready. I'm mad that the Sabres thought Devin Levi was ready, and I think that hurt them early in the season. I think he's in the right place right now in Rochester, but going with 3 goalies, being afraid to waive a goalie or to make a deal for a better goalie. UPL's playing pretty good right now. But what's funny? He has that great game against the Rangers. They send Levi down, and UPL's been good. He's been the least of their problems. Hey, but sure enough, he gets shelled the next fucking game.
It's actually not funny at all, okay? Saturday night, I was like, I don't know, but like I think that was the tweet with I quit the podcast Saturday night watching the Sabres.
No, that was Sunday. That was Nashville.
No, that's incorrect. It was Saturday, but your drunk ass didn't see it until Sunday. All right. I sent the fucking tweet on Saturday, bro. And then, and I went on a Facebook rant, that I was selling my tickets for $10. I was just livid on Saturday.
Yeah.
Because it was so big. What it meant to me symbolically, it was actually Saturday was like the last straw. But that was Comrie. What made me feel like the most amount of despair that I've had yet this season was actually the game against St. Louis on Thursday. You just handed UPL the keys. All right. After fiddle fucking around with this 3 goalie rotation, you made a firm organizational commitment to one of your guys, and he absolutely shit himself.
He did. He really did.
We outshoot the team 45-20 and lose 6-3 or whatever it is. That right there, that to me was disastrous. And I went after a couple of dudes on the Sabre Twitter sides who pointed to the didn't really take not much to take away from this. This is close to a quote. Not much you can take away from this one when you outshoot a team 45-20 or whatever. Bullshit. This game had a massive takeaway, and that is that you turned over the most important position on your hockey team to someone who might still suck. Now, I'll walk it back a little bit from the performance in Nashville, okay, or at home against Nashville. 2 goals is, it should be enough to win. But even the ones he let in weren't that great. And I just think if goalie goes south, if they get healthy, and the thing that that holds them back is the goaltending.
He should get blasted.
Yeah, he's gonna.
I'm not going to say hot. I'm not going to say this he's getting hot, because this seat ain't getting hot, man. Kevyn Adams ain't going nowhere for a while. Terry loves him, but yeah,
and it's fine.
Comrie's been bad. He had, I think, a good game, maybe 2 good games, but he's been bad. 3.99 goals against. He's only got a .864 save percentage. That's fucking terrible, man.
I think that's the first move. All right. If UPL has another St. Louis game, all right, within the next week, I think you got to look and say,
above a score. You think so?
What's that?
Above trying to get somebody who's going to put the puck in the net. I'm not saying you're wrong. I could see it.
Well, look, a lot of it's going to depend on Tuck's. We're going to have, by the time this one comes out, tomorrow will be a fun day for this. Tomorrow, meaning Tuesday. I think Renato's Tuesday morning on GR. I got a feeling we're going to hear Tage, Quinn, and Tuck news in that interview.
Yeah, Tuck's got a hamstring. It's pretty well known at this point.
And probably Greenway too. It's a big injury news day for the Sabres.
Do you think this team can afford to bring up, you bring up Kulik again, you bring up Rosane again or whatever? I mean, they don't seem like they trust him much for big roles right now. They're in their first stints, and now you're going to bring them up, and they're going to be forced into an important role. Maybe Byro.
They're in a bad spot, bro.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. When I said
they're in a bad
this
spot.
was my argument with my cousin. It's like, yeah, they're
keep your head above water until you get healthy. Keep your head above water until you get healthy. But
that's like do
if
or die.
Your goalies suck, you're not going to keep your head above water. And B, if they suck, it ain't going to matter once you do get healthy, as was proven in St. Louis last Thursday night. The Sabres are in a bad spot.
Yeah,
it's a bad time to be a Sabre fan, as evidenced by the 914 people in attendance Sunday night. My kid is excited to go to the Detroit game, or was excited to go to the Detroit game. That
Kane's not playing now. Well, again, this is old news for some people by Wednesday morning or listening.
But other than that, I'm not going to get shit for these tickets, man. Are you kidding me? These it's about to go back to $5, $10 land for Sabres tickets. It is. And you know what? While we're on it, I've got to blast this team for one more fucking thing.
What's that?
I got a call from my season ticket person. All right. I never really bother with these things. I'm not someone who yells about the product or something like that. Things are what they are. These people can't really do much about my plight. But I just the way they have the higher prices for food and beverage on premium nights is infuriating to me.
Really?
Really? What? That
no, really? I didn't know that.
Or that
no. That they have higher.
I think I've said it on the show before. I wasn't
paying attention if you did.
No, that's fine though.
Did you pay more money for a hot dog when they're playing, say, the Rangers, and you do if they're playing the Winnipeg Jets?
Yes.
Really?
Yes.
It's stupid.
Well, it's not just they don't just say, hey, it's based upon the ticket price. So I'm okay with variable pricing on the tickets.
Sure.
All right. Variable pricing on food and beverage is that's
bullshit.
Gross.
That's bullshit. You can pay. I agree. If I'm going to pay to see a Vegas game, I would expect to pay more money than going to see a freaking Seattle Kraken game. I get that, but I never knew that. I didn't know
they bang the food and beverage up. So I tell it to my guy. I don't know, but probably percentage based.
That's crazy.
It is.
Wow.
So I tell it to my guy, right? And I just did it kind of like, hey, I just, just to put it out there, put it in a box or whatever. I'm sure you guys are accumulating a lot of data. Like, I was very gentle about it. I'll be goddamned if that motherfucker didn't say, well, you'd have to call Delaware North about that. So what, motherfucker? Are you kidding me right now? I mean, honestly, though, this guy's probably on the fast track to fucking administrative stardom with that bozo Pagula, the way he passed the buck. But that was his advice to me. That's a Delaware North thing. All right, thanks, buddy. Check in with me again when I'm fucking done, because I ain't renewing the Sabres and I ain't renewing the Bills.
You're not renewing the Bills
right now. Fuck that.
No.
Even with the and it's not because I'm super pissed at the team. It's just, even with the new digs on the horizon, it just, I've got a little bit of middle ground right now before my older sons are old enough to want to hang with me at a Bills game,
right?
And the younger ones can even go.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So I'm going to be in this fucking,
all right, that's fair.
I'm going to be in this purgatory for probably the next 5 years,
at least 5.
And it's
five
why I plan to go to Dallas, which will be my second game of the season. I mean, really, what am I doing here?
All right, we're going to get out of here. You know what's funny? So I had you for back-to-back episodes, and the plan was, you said you didn't want to spend any more time here with me than you had to. So we knocked off the first episode in a good 42 minutes or so. And here we are on the back end with an hour and 5-minute episode.
Really? The second one
went an hour and 5 minutes. Yeah,
went longer? Well, you did kind of abruptly finish the first one.
I did. I was like, I got to get the fuck out of this.
There is that.
All right, man. For Tone Pucks, I'm Pat Moran. Tomorrow on the show, I'm going to have Anthony Marino, and we'll start to dive into a critical game between the Buffalo Bills and the Kansas City Chiefs. Talk to you then.